Good morning, everyone. This is Michelle Hughes from Ageless and Timeless. Oh, I always say this every day. Every time we have a podcast, I always have such a special guest. But today I have a very, very, very special guest. And his name is Dr. Darshan Shah, Shah, for those of you who want to write this down. He'll also be on our website and our YouTube channel, as well as all the podcast distribution sites. So you will definitely be able to listen and view this podcast in multiple places. So welcome, Dr. Shah. I'm so happy to have you here today.
Thank you, Michelle. It's such an honor to be here, and I really appreciate you doing this with me.
Well, thank you. So let me just tell everybody a little bit about you, and then you can take over. So when I say a very, very, very special guest, I mean that Dr. Shah has been one of the youngest doctors. He started practicing medicine he was age 21, graduated from the University of Missouri in Kansas City, right?
Correct.
And then went on to the Mayo Clinic. He got his medical degree and practiced at the Mayo Clinic, was both a regular surgeon and a cosmetic surgeon. And then went on to, you went to Harvard too, right?
Yeah, I did Harvard Business School. At Mayo Clinic, I did mostly reconstructive surgery, actually. We were operating on mainly people with cancer that needed to have reconstruction and people with major injuries. So I did a lot of that for a while. And then I also, yes, you're right. I went to Harvard Business School as well later in life to learn more about business.
Right. So Dr. Shah is one of those rare doctors who is a businessman, entrepreneur, technically savvy, obviously having learned quite a bit of that side of the world, business world at Harvard. So you have a very unique background. You know, they say most doctors, I don't mean to demean doctors, but they say most doctors are not very good business people. And you are one of those exceptions. So, and that leads me to the next chapter, which is Dr. Shah has conceived of and started as the CEO of a company called Next Health, NEXT Health, and their offices, their clinics are in mostly Southern Cal right now, but they are in New York City, and they're expanding to Dubai. And there are many, many more sites that are on their calendar for expansion going forward. But right now, Studio City, Century City, West Hollywood are the three. And Dr. Shah is headquartered in beautiful Malibu, so he's got it all wrapped up here. So let's talk a little bit about Next Health. But I want, before we get to discussing Next Health, I just want people to understand what inspired you to go from being as you call, a recovering plastic surgeon, to becoming a CEO of a startup company that's expanding rapidly. So could you just give us a little history, Darshan, of why and how you became so passionate about doing Next Health?
Yes, so it really just came from my own personal health struggles, Michelle. So what happened was, being a surgeon, a plastic surgeon, and also running the business of plastic surgery, I had multiple surgery centers, many doctors working at our surgery centers. I had over 100 employees. I was working in the business and working on the business. And what I mean by that is I was working 12-hour days, and then I was working another 4 to 6 hours running this business as well, after I got out of the operating room. And what happened was I became last priority in my list of priorities. And I became very sick. I was very overweight. I was not sleeping well. I was not eating good. And I was on 3 different blood pressure medications. I was pre-diabetic, and then I was also having autoimmune issues as well. And what happened was I decided at that point in my life that I needed to make a major change, because I was only in my early 40s and so sick that, looking at the actuarial tables, like I wasn't going to survive more than 20 years. And I said, this is not acceptable. And what I did was, at that point in time, is I took a little break from my day job. I hired someone to run the business and also people to take over the surgeries. And I went from 7 days a week of working down to 2 or 3 days a week of working. And I used that spare time to learn about how to get myself healthy. And what I did was I went to every course I could find, Michelle, on, I became a certified personal trainer. I became a nutritionist. I learned functional medicine by going to functional medicine courses and really was able to get myself healthy pretty rapidly, actually. In like 8 or 9 months, I was able to completely turn around my health, lose a lot of weight, get off my medications, and just feel so much better, have that vitality back again, the energy back, etc. And while I was doing this journey on myself, I was giving my patients the same advice. And I noticed them making huge changes in their personal health as well. And I thought to myself, this is so inspiring for me to be able to get people healthy, much more inspiring than even doing surgery, where, surgery was super inspiring and a lot of fun. I still love doing surgery because you change people's life with surgery as well. But this was changing people's life at the core, helping them to live longer, helping them to feel incredible, helping them to get on with having a more robust life. And so I really decided at that point in time to go to Harvard Business School, learn more about business, and start a new business, which is Next Health. And what we did with Next Health was I was frustrated because many doctors don't have the mentality of a functional medicine doctor, and many doctors don't have the time to spend with their patients to be truly proactive, to really dive deep in their health on sleep and nutrition and gut health and all these things that we talk about. And I was also running all over town doing all the different therapies. I was getting my hormones from one doctor in town. I was going for cryotherapy, hyperbaric oxygen therapy in 2 different places. I was getting IVs. And so all these things was so discombobulated in my life. And it would take me literally, all day to go between all my different appointments. And I said, you know what? I'm going to do this all myself in one place. I'm going to bring everything together. The testing that we do for functional medicine, the in-depth consultations and advice that we like to give to our patients to really turn their health around, being proactive and preventative. And then lastly, all the technology you need all under one roof. And so that's when we started Next Health about 8 years ago. And we've been growing since then to multiple locations, like you mentioned, Michelle, and we're soon going to be international. We have locations opening all over the world because I think what we put together really speaks to people and really helps people. I can't tell you the number of lives that we've changed and saved. And I think we have a pretty good model and it just needs to happen.
So, what is the structure of Next Health? I saw on your website that you offer franchise opportunities. So, just for people who might be listening and viewing today who have a real passion about doing this like you did, is there an opportunity for them to be part of Next Health as a franchisee?
Yes, absolutely. So, we have 6 corporate locations, like you mentioned, in Southern California and New York. And we decided about a year ago that we would start franchising just because my whole goal is to distribute this knowledge and this technology as far as we can and make it as accessible to normal people, like people that aren't billionaires from selling their company, And so I really want to create a platform that's international and national that people can go in their hometown and do this stuff because it really does make a difference. And so we decided, like I said, about a year ago to franchise. And about 3 months ago, we started offering the franchises. And we have about 50 different franchise locations opening right now in the next year. And we have probably another 150 territories still open. So if anyone's interested and they have a passion for this and they have the wherewithal to start a business in their community, we're happy to talk to them.
So just curious for financial aspect of this, what would it cost for someone to become a franchisee at the outset?
Usually, to open one of these locations, you have to get the equipment and the build out the location is somewhere around $1 million or so to do that. And a lot of this can be financed or through tenant improvements that landlords give you. Mm-hmm. And then you have to have a few months of kind of runway to get to the point of profitability with your centers. So that's kind of around where you want to be, somewhere between $1 to $2 million in funds per location.
And what are the qualifications that you have to be a franchisee and be accepted by your company?
Yeah, we like for our franchisees either to have had a franchise business in the past or be backed by someone who's had a franchise business in the past, because it is kind of a different model. And so you have to be able to really understand what it means to be a franchisee. And then also, we provide physicians for people as well. So we train and provide the physicians in your local community. But if you have a relationship with a physician that is functional medicine trained, that's also helpful. But we can provide that as well.
So if someone wants to apply, do they send a letter to you, or how would they get the door to open for them?
Yeah, if you go to our website, next-health.com, there's a button at the bottom of the website that says franchise. And you just press that, you fill out a form, we'll get all your information and reach right back out to you.
Today's podcast is brought to you by Water and Wellness. Water and Wellness is one of the best companies to find purified water. They have a countertop system that I use, and I travel with it all the time. So I would highly recommend you look at that. If you use the Ageless code, you'll get a 10% discount. Waterandwellness.com /pages /ageless and timeless. That's how you can order to get the discount. So visit waterandwellness.com or call 877-296-6880 to learn how to take control of your drinking water and learn about all those natural additives to optimize your health and longevity. I mean, just as a segue, franchising is a very, very slippery slope. As you know, there have been many, many great successes and extremely obvious failures because it all comes down to people and the structure and the success of the parent company, of course. So, how do you go about vetting a potential franchisee to ensure that you're going to have success?
We have a very good and experienced franchise team that has been doing this for years. And so we have you come out, and we call them discovery days, and we have you meet with us face to face. We make sure you understand every aspect of the business. And during that time, we also make sure that we really feel comfortable that you'll be able to do this with us. And so, it takes a certain amount of passion, takes a certain amount of experience and knowledge to do this. And I think we've been very successful in finding our franchisees so far. And, unfortunately, we have to say no to a lot of people as well. So we're very selective because you're right. You do want to make sure all of our franchisees are extremely successful.
And they must have a medical doctor, right? That is either someone that they are in partnership with or someone that you would provide as a location sensitive physician, obviously in the location of the franchisee. So
Exactly.
is that in itself a huge hurdle to get the medical side of the equation set for the development of a real franchise?
No, I mean, we've had a lot of doctors that are extremely passionate about this field. And they, like, you said, unfortunately, a lot of doctors are very busy. They don't have necessarily the business knowledge to do a business. And so doctors are looking for something like this, especially the functional medicine trained doctors and the anti-aging doctors. They want to find a business that they can call home. And we have hundreds of doctors that have reached out to us to do this, and is just partnering with the right person that can build out the location and get the equipment and get the staff and manage all of that. Those are the kind of things that doctors really don't have the time to do or necessarily the experience to do. So I think it's great on both ends. It's a medical business. You do need a physician there, but also for the physicians, they appreciate the opportunity to work with an experienced operator as well.
Yeah, so it's a combination of your skills from, being a medical doctor first and then a businessman second. And, you found your path. And hey, that's kudos to you, really, because so many people flounder in their journey. They're medical doctors and they're frustrated with the system and they don't know how to get out and or to change their life. And you took, bold steps. So, yeah, that entrepreneurial part of your DNA is obviously very, very strong. And you have shown and demonstrated through what you've done that, this is really something that's deep inside of you. So congratulations on that. I know it's still a work in progress, and any startup is always a big risk, and obviously you're putting so much of yourself into that. So congratulations. So let's segue to what happens when a client or a so-called patient wants to utilize your services. So let's just pretend hypothetically that a person is stating they want to be more aware of what you do, so they walk in the door of one of your locations. What happens?
Yeah, no, that so first of all, our locations are made to be the 180-degree opposite of what a typical doctor's office experience is like. So all of our locations are beautiful, big locations with a lot of with a lot of light and a lot of high ceilings, and you're immediately greeted by our reception, and it's a big open space. You can see everything that we're doing at this space in the front, and in the back is where we have our medical offices. And so, say you walk in, the first thing that we would do is we would offer you the ability to do some testing, right? We have biomarker tests, blood tests, genetic tests. We also have specialized equipment that we can do some testing to really get a good look under the hood of your biology to see what's going on. We have different levels of testing, of course, that we can provide. And then once you're done with the testing, we will also schedule you a visit with one of our providers or physicians on site. And so usually that visit happens 2 weeks after you come in from getting your testing in the first place. Just gives us some time to get your laboratory work back and the results back and formulate a plan for you. In the meanwhile, however, like I mentioned, we do have all the technology in the space as well. So we have the potential for doing IV therapy, NAD therapy. We can also do hyperbaric oxygen therapy, cryotherapy, sauna therapy, LED therapy. We have all the technology there that you can start using while you're waiting for your blood work to come back. And most people do. They'll do an hour or two in our location and just go through everything. I call it the longevity circuit, all the equipment there to do to improve your longevity. And then once you sit down with our provider or physician, we will create what's called the health optimization plan for you. And this is on 12 aspects of your health. I have a model called the wellness wheel that we use, and we sit down, we explain to you what this is. And the wellness wheel is the 12 aspects of your health that we're going to modify and cause big changes in over the course of your relationship with us. And so we have a membership model where you become a member for a year. And during that year, we'll take you through all 12 aspects of your health, really optimizing every aspect, and you'll be utilizing our technology on site.
And so, what are those 12 aspects of your health?
Yeah. So basically, the way it works is we always start off that we have 4 goals for all of our patients. First goal is we want you to get your basics right. The basics are, of course, nutrition, sleep, and exercise, right? Exercise/movement. So those are the first 3 aspects. Once you've got the basics right, we want to attack the 4 major causes of chronic disease and death in the Western world. So those are cardiovascular disease, neurodegenerative disease like Alzheimer's disease, and then cancer, and then finally metabolic disease, right? So those are the 4 things that we want to make sure that not only do we know your particular risk for these, but we have all the tools necessary to diagnose these diseases at the very beginning. So you have time to turn these things around, right? I would say cancer's biggest enemy is being diagnosed as stage 1. We want to make sure that all these diseases we diagnose you as stage 1, so you don't die from these diseases like most of the Western world is. Once we've eliminated those 4 major causes of death, then we can really get into the nitty-gritty of optimizing your health. And so those categories in the wellness wheel are your hormonal health, your gut health, to detoxify your life and reduce inflammation. And then also we talk about emotional health at that point in time, emotional and mental health. And then finally, once we have all that kind of set, then we can start talking about some of the advanced longevity treatments that are out there now. Things like therapeutic plasma exchange, stem cell therapy, exosomes, ozone, all peptides. These are the kind of things that we start introducing people to once we get to the point where we have your life kind of optimized from the health aspect.
So what time frame does it take normally to educate people for a whole world of possibilities that has never been presented to them? So that's one of your biggest challenges, really, is education. So
Absolutely.
what would you say is is a reasonable time frame for a person coming in cold who has issues. Everybody has some issues and that they want to improve. So what would you say is your education protocol in
Yeah,
terms
yeah. So basically, we go through the wellness wheel, like I discussed with you.
of,
It usually takes us about 3 to 6 months to really address most of it and all of it. And for the next 6 months, we're refining all of it. And during this entire time, we're checking more tests to make sure that we're actually causing a difference. I'll give you like a perfect example. One thing is a lot of people are at high risk for metabolic disease. And as you know, metabolic disease includes things like diabetes, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, obesity, et cetera. And what we do with a lot of our patients is we start educating them on nutrition on day one, right? But we also use some advanced technologies such as a continuous glucose monitor, for example. And then they start learning about how their glucose needs to be glucose flat, a curve needs to be flat. They need to avoid glucose spike. They learn that over 6 to 8 weeks. It doesn't happen like instantaneously, right? So it's a constant education process for the first 6 months or so. But people start getting into a routine. They start getting used to it. They're tracking their sleep, they're tracking their glucose, et cetera. And then usually by 6 months, people are feeling a lot better.
so are you finding that most people do want to join for like a club membership for a year to give this whole thing a chance to work? Is that what your primary protocol is going to be for anyone coming in, even though they may want to try the equipment the first day or two while they're doing blood work, but it is the best option is to join for a year?
The best, I would say the best is to join for a year. We also have many people that fly in from all over the world to take part of our services. And just because you can't use the equipment on site doesn't mean we can't still modify your health. A lot of what we do can be done remotely. And so we have the ability, of course, to meet with people via Zoom, and we do that on a quarterly basis as well. So whether or not you're coming in every week or you're doing a Zoom with us every quarter, we do recommend a year because it really takes that long to make a full effect in your health.
So what's the difference in the pre-fee versus the a la carte in terms of cost?
It's different for the different packages that we have available. So say you want just the functional medicine testing, right? So say you want all the functional medicine testing, you want to know your results, so you just want that. That's would be considered an a la carte, what we call our total wellness panel. That's somewhere around $3,000 or so to do that. But say you want instead, you want the entire testing package, including the cancer testing and the full body MRI and the CAT scan of your heart to really mitigate the possibility of you having chronic disease. That really takes, more than just one visit. It's not just one visit of results. We need to put a program in place for 6 months to a year. So what we have for that is what we call our executive physical. That's a $14,500 program, but it includes a year membership as well. And then for people that are not willing to spend that amount of money, it's a lot of money. We can still help them. So we have what we call our baseline that we do for people, and the baseline is $300, and we can give you a lot of data with that baseline, and you can still come and visit us on a monthly basis for a $99 a month just to use the technology.
Well, that makes a lot of sense because today's world, as you and I spoke earlier today, it's so difficult for people to come out of pocket. This is concierge medicine, and no insurance is going to cover, even though it's quite discouraging for people like you and me to see that how our system is based on sick care instead of health care. And it should these kinds of things should be covered because they are preventative and they will save money. And why does the healthcare system not see that? I'm getting off on a tangent, but anyway, I don't.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's so
I
counterintuitive, right?
yeah, counterintuitive. It's like, why are we paying people to get sick? That's
Yeah,
really what.
exactly.
So here you are helping people to avoid getting sick, or if they're already sick, to get better so that they live a quality of life and a longer life than a sick care life where disease is prevailing and they're fighting in a reactive way rather than a proactive way. So that's my little speech. Of course, I think anybody who watches this podcast knows that just by the guests that come on, that this is the very passionate theme is to take charge. You are the producer of your own play. So take charge of your life, and that means take charge of your health, because your health is your wealth. And so you're hitting on so many important subjects. I like this way, and we can flash this in our on our screen for people. If you can send me a link to the different protocols that people can select. That's really what I think would help a lot of people that are viewing today, is how can I access Next Health given my personal situation? And that's what we want to appeal to. So not everybody can afford $14,000, but most people can afford the third one you mentioned, the 300, to just
$100, yeah.
get that baseline, so you know where to begin, and then you start building your pyramid from there. So when you say
Right.
the office space or the clinic space is very aesthetic, on your website, can we show some of the photos of some of the spaces, if you'll send those to us?
Absolutely. Our website, if you go to next-health.com, you'll see right in the beginning, like you'll see what our space looks like. We call ourselves the Apple Store of health and wellness. It really does feel like a clean, pretty, light Apple store and open
Mm-hmm.
spaces. And people just feel good when they walk in. We hear that all the time. They feel healthier as soon as they walk in. And so that was very purposefully we did that. We went through a lot of different architects and designers, and we found one that we really liked who worked with Frank Gehry, and he helped us design the perfect place, basically, because we really wanted to turn healthcare around, not just from the way we think about things proactively and preventatively, but also from how you interact with your doctor. It should be a positive interaction with time spent with you, and you really feel a connection and you really feel positive going there rather than sick.
So in the 8 years that you've been in business, how many people have you had? I assure you have some kind of a head count. How many people do you think you've helped?
Oh, we have over 10,000 members, and I think we did a count of the number of lives actually saved, and we're well into the hundreds by diagnosing tumors they didn't know they had, chronic disease that they didn't know they had. You just had symptoms, but they had no idea. Most people don't even have a primary care doctor anymore because they're so disillusioned with the system, that they
This
kind of ignore their symptoms now. And so, for them to have a place to go and it's $300 to kind of figure out what's going on, it's a game changer for a lot of people.
it's a gift,
Yeah,
a real gift. If you can't take $300, like I said earlier today, if you don't go out to dinner one night and you've just made your commitment to your health. And
exactly.
$300 for a meal these days is kind of a norm. So yeah, this is so important, and I'm so pleased that we can share your concept with our people, our viewers, because more people need to know about this. Not everybody has heard about Next Health, and so I know you're doing a huge marketing effort, but still, it takes a lot of effort to get out there to the masses, so to speak. So, what? Let's talk about some of those individual things you mentioned. The treatments. Uh, just take just take cryotherapy as an example. A lot of people have heard of cryotherapy, but they don't really know what it is and what it does for you. So just use that as one example of one of your treatments that you think makes a difference, and tell us about it.
Yes, absolutely. So let me take it a step back real quick. In functional medicine, that we learn that diseases come from root causes, and so, like you said, the Western medicine is so focused on diagnosing a disease and treating it with a pill or a surgery. But we know that diseases really come from root causes, and there's 6 root causes in my mind of most disease. One is inflammation. As we all know, inflammation can lead to a lot of problems, and most diseases have a base of inflammation. Secondly is hormone dysregulation or deficiencies. Thirdly is gut issues like gut dysbiosis. You're not having a good, healthy gut and leaky gut.
Right.
Fourth is insulin resistance. So people with metabolic diseases have insulin resistance.
Right.
Fifth is toxic exposures. So we have all live in the most toxic environment ever in human history, and those exposures are causing us to be sick. And lastly is mitochondrial dysfunction, right? So our mitochondria are the powerhouses of our cells, and they are trying to keep up with the energy requirements every cell needs to keep doing his job, but it's so hard because all the cells are trying to fight inflammation, toxic exposures, not enough hormones, etc. So what cryotherapy does, cryotherapy really helps your mitochondria to rejuvenate and to make energy. And when you give that little bit of stress, it's called hormesis, to a mitochondria, what it does is it resets itself to create more ATP, create more energy, and also you go undergo a process called mitochondrial biogenesis where you start making more mitochondria. And we live this sedentary kind of comfortable lifestyle all the time. Our mitochondria never get these little bursts of stress that they used to get when we were cavemen. And so it's so hard for them to stay healthy. So certain things such as heat, like in a sauna, therapy, cryotherapy, and also high intensity intermittent training, exercising at a very vigorous pace helps your mitochondria to undergo this hormesis process.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so the heat therapy is the far infrared sauna,
Right.
which everybody who has used one knows the benefits of that. I have one in my home, and I use it every single day. And the reason for far infrared is it's not as direct a heat as the traditional Swedish sauna. It's a more indirect heat, but it's completely effective because it's heating all of your body in a very what would you call it, non-invasive way.
Right.
And then, so that's the heat part of it. And then the cold part of it would be the cryotherapy, right? So
Right.
does it take people a lot of courage to jump into a cold tank of water?
Yeah, so we actually make it a little bit easier on people. So I actually do have a cold plunge, a cold tank of water in my house as well. But the cryotherapy machines that we have at Next Health locations, they're a little bit easier. So they are basically big giant freezers that were made for humans to be inside, and they cool down to negative 140 degrees. And so we can really just have someone in there for 2 to 3 minutes without having to get them wet. And that's the key. And so when they're in there and they're not wet, they can get in and out and be much more comfortable. Don't get me wrong; it's still a shock to the system, and you still do get that incredible burst of energy afterwards, just as effectively as a cold plunge, but it's a lot easier.
So, Darshan, is there any way to measure the senescent cells before and then the post mitochondrial benefits after? Is there a machine that people can actually see, that like you do an oximeter for your oxygen before you do a hyperbaric? Is there a way to do it for cryotherapy?
Sadly, there's not. There's no real way to measure the number of mitochondria in your cells and how they're functioning very effectively, unless you have a lab where you can actually, run a myriad of tests. And so there's really not. But I can tell you that there's a lot of research around cold therapy and sauna therapy showing longevity benefits, and just the way people feel and sleep and are able to have less pain from less inflammation after cryotherapy, people can tell immediately that they're feeling better.
And so let's move to stem cells and exosomes. So obviously this is more cutting edge, and this is more a little more difficult for people to access unless they're coming to Next Health or they have a stem cell professional that they work with. So what and when do you advise to do stem cells for people? What would be the typical profile of a person that you would recommend stem cell therapy or exosomes or the combination of the two?
Yeah, so there's two kind of patient populations that can utilize stem cells. One is people that are having joint problems, knees, shoulders, etc., that have either torn a ligament slightly or having issues with their joints. And so we can do direct stem cell injections into those areas, or exosome injections, or even PRP injection that can stimulate the healing process. The second group of people that we use stem cells for are ones that want it for longevity benefits. And so those are given intravenously, and the stem cells are able to locate areas of inflammation that need healing in your body, go to those areas and stimulate your natural stem cells to start also healing those areas as well. So those are the two populations that we serve with stem cells. We the FDA and local medical societies tell us that we can't say that it treats any specific disease. And so we never say that if you have this disease, you should do stem cells. That's definitely
Right.
not what we're saying. But what we are saying is that we know that stem cells are able to stimulate the healing process and able to locate areas of inflammation. And there is a lot of research and a lot of testimonials that you can see on the internet of people that have been massively helped by stem cells for all sorts of different conditions.
What's the origin of the stem cells that you use?
So we used to use autologous stem cells. So we used to take them from people's fat and purify them and inject them. But then what we realized is that these stem cells, they're kind of your older stem cells anyway. And so they're not as effective as newer stem cells. And so what we've been doing lately is obtaining purified umbilical cord blood that was donated by mothers from their babies and using those stem cells instead. Now, these are brand new stem cells from brand new babies. They have a lot more growth factors, a lot more ability to heal and to find the locations where you have inflammation.
Hmm. So, have you tested the impact of the change of from autologous to embryonic in
Um,
terms of outcomes?
Yeah, so we haven't tested them ourselves, but the stem cell companies that are making these and the research has a lot. There's a lot of research going on right now, and the companies have tested the concentrations of cytokines and growth factors in the stem cells, and there's orders of magnitudes in difference.
Yeah. So the autologous stem cells, that pluripotent, the ones you mentioned earlier, they just travel to the area of most need. It's kind of like they have a brain, right? Or
Right.
the thing,
Yeah,
but
all stem cells do that. All
yeah.
stem, and they're not pluripotent, by the way. Pluripotent stem cells are ones that can turn into any other kind of cell.
Okay.
Yeah. But yes, all stem cells have the ability to locate areas of inflammation.
Right. It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's a miracle, really, when you think about it. And by the way, for people who don't know, PRP, the term means platelet-rich plasma, and that's a whole other area that, like you said, you can combine exosomes, PRP, and stem cells in one package, really, to address the needs of the individual, customized. So the and PRP, by the way, you can use that on your scalp and do the hair growth. So
Right.
anyway, do people actually ask you about hair growth? Is that one of the treatments that you do there at Next
Oh,
Health?
absolutely. Yep, absolutely. We do PRP and exosomes to people's scalp all the time to help with hair growth. We have an entire hair program. I mean, hair is one of those things that can be affected by a lot of different physiological processes. So we want to make sure your hormones are good, you have low inflammation, et cetera. Make sure all your micronutrients are in where they need to be. So we do micronutrient testing as well. And then yes, PRP is definitely part of the hair growth program.
Yeah, and I don't know if you know Dr. Todd Ovakaitis in Carlsbad, but he's been a guest on my podcast, and he's developed a. Do you know of him,
I
Darshan?
don't. No, I don't. I wish I did.
I need to connect you with him, but just so you know, he's developed a very innovative application for uh, absorbing stem cells. Because, like everything else, the absorption process is one of the big challenges. And he has a laser invention. And by the way, he works with NASA all the time because of his the innovative aspect of this. So if you can look him up, it's Dr. Todd Ovakaitis. It's an Ovakaytis, and give him a plug here. He is one of my sponsors, so I always like to not only just sponsors, but I want everybody to know about you as well. And you're not a sponsor yet. Maybe one day you will be. However, the treatment, and I did it, just fascinating. You go into his office, they do a full on screening, just like you do, all your health, and they won't touch you until they know everything about you medically or health wise. Then they ask you to tell them which parts of your body would you want to have the stem cells most address. And so you give them areas of your body, whether it's your brain or your heart, or and then they take your blood and they centrifuge it, and then they do their laser treatment on the actual stem cells from your blood, and then they
Hmm.
reinject you. So yeah, I mean, if you ever want to go to Carlsbad and meet him, I'd be happy to set that up for you, because it is a whole area of stem cell treatments that I'm not sure a lot of people really understand. But he did. I don't know if you'd want me to say this publicly, but I think it's okay. He did heal Mike Tyson, and he's had a lot of VIPs and celebrities that he's healed from injuries. So very, very important person to be aware of. Not to take away from you and what you're doing, but this is just, I look for collaborations. Like I told you earlier today, synergy and networking is really how we all grow. I mean, it's not what you know, but who you know sometimes that can really make a difference. And so, yeah, so
Yeah.
we're all in this world making a difference together. So, okay,
Yeah.
so go to I want to hear more about the imaging part, because you mentioned MRIs and CAT scans. Well, we all know CAT scans have a risk of radiation, right? But MRIs are not. So, do you normally recommend people do MRI before anything else if in the imaging area?
So, we send people to an imaging partner, which is right next door to us, basically, to do the imaging. And we do multiple modalities of imaging based on your age, your symptoms, and your biomarkers. So we choose what we want to do based on what's going on in your body at that moment in time. I can break those down a little bit for you. So we have the full body MRI. The full body MRI is an incredible test because MRIs are only used in hospitals for injuries for so long, but now the technology has gotten cheaper but better, and you can do an entire body in an hour, whereas that used to take 5-6 hours to do that. And what we
Right.
can do with a full body MRI is detect solid organ tumors before they become symptomatic. Once again, cancer's biggest enemy is being diagnosed at stage 1. And so we want to make sure that we can find any solid organ tumors way before you feel it. I always say if Steve Jobs had a full body MRI, he might still be alive today because he died of pancreatic cancer. But secondly, so many people also die of an anatomic abnormality that they didn't know they had. For example, an aneurysm in your brain, an aneurysm in your aorta. These are things that are developing over time, and you have no idea you have it until it bursts, and then you end up either dying or being in the ICU for a very long time. And so I think a full body MRI is very useful, and we use it on almost all of our patients that are over the age of 40 to diagnose these types of issues, and
And you,
even people that are under 40 want it
yeah,
done. And I think
yeah,
it's fine. You're not getting radiation.
yeah.
You're looking at what's going on inside, and we find all sorts of weird things all the time to keep an eye on.
Yeah, and you didn't even mention the brain, which is part of the MRI that is
Right.
so important to prevent dementia and Alzheimer's before they ever get to that point, because you can see the if there's beta amyloid in the brain, or other influences of those dreadful diseases. So,
Right.
uh,
But actually, the MRI is not very good at picking up signs of dementia. It
uh,
actually picks it up pretty late. So we have other testing modalities that we can use to pick up signs of dementia. There's a new blood test that can actually detect tau and beta amyloid protein in your blood. And that's going to be, I think, a game changer in the early diagnostics of Alzheimer's disease and other forms of dementia. So a
that
blood test is really what we're looking at using for that.
is that the APOE, or is that
No,
another?
ApoE is actually your genetic risk for Alzheimer's, and that
Right.
the ApoE gene is not deterministic. Just because you have the ApoE gene doesn't mean that you're going to get Alzheimer's. But if you have two copies of the E4 gene, your risk of Alzheimer's is 12 times the normal population. That's good to know as well. We do test everyone for ApoE, but
Mm,
the blood test is something that can detect the actual proteins forming
mm.
years before you become symptomatic. And that's what we're using now. This is brand new, just in the last few months that we've been able to offer this.
Mm. I hope people listening and viewing today are aware of just the excitement of the change that has come into medicine in the last few years. It's like 100 years of medicine have been compressed into the last 5 years, and maybe talk about that for a moment with artificial intelligence and the other cutting edge technologies that you are aware and utilize, but a lot of people have never even embrace that, or they don't know about it first. They have to be educated, and then they have to understand what it could do for them. So maybe touch on what you would call some of these cutting edge technologies just for a moment.
Yes, I'll give you an example of one. And you're absolutely right. Like we've learned more in the last 5 years than we've learned in 100 years with medicine. And the game changers are happening right now, and people don't even know it. So I'll give you one example. There's a new test called a liquid biopsy. It's a blood test that you can do to find what's called cell-free DNA of tumors in your blood. You can detect 50 different forms of cancers that are almost impossible to find until you become symptomatic, years and years and years before they become symptomatic. So stage one, or even before stage one, before they become a larger tumor that's hard to treat. Cancer is typically diagnosed as stage 3 or 4. Usually it's metastatic. Once a cancer is metastatic or too large to remove with surgery, then you have to undergo chemo, radiation, et cetera. And the survival rate for stage 3 and 4 cancers or metastatic tumors is abysmal, horrible. And we spend so much money and so much time in this country and all over the world treating cancers that are stage 3 and stage 4. With this blood test that just came out a couple of years ago, we can actually just take a simple blood test and find tumor DNA that has escaped the tumor and is roaming around in your bloodstream. We can find that. And the reason we can do that now is because we have these DNA sequencers that can find not just sequence your own DNA, but also DNA just that's hanging out in your bloodstream. And so they've used artificial intelligence to find out, well, what are these DNA sequences? And then they find out through artificial intelligence and machine learning that these are actually coming from tumors. And what are the tumors? You can tell from the DNA sequence exactly the tumor it is. So with a high degree of specificity to tell what tumor it is and sensitivity, we can find 50 different tumors with a simple blood test. Now, this blood test right now is a little bit expensive. It's $1,000, but the price will be coming down. We've seen sequencing the entire human genome go from billions of dollars to a few $100s in the course of the last 10, 15 years. This price will also be coming down very quickly. And what is this going to do? It's going to almost eradicate cancer from the list of the top 10 causes of death that the CDC publishes every year, right? Because
How
now we're
come
finding it at stage 1.
Yeah, but how come we don't hear about this in the so-called fake news, mainstream media? Why are they keeping this a secret from the masses of people who could benefit by coming up with this? Even $1,000 is still a small amount if you're going to discover something that critical to your future.
Yeah, it blows me away too. Like, why is this not front page news every single day?
Right.
Like everyone go out and get this test done. We need to know. And so
Right.
I think there's a lot of in anything in medicine, there's a huge learning curve. There's an acceptance curve, and there's the cost as well. And so between doctors finding out about it, learning what it is, and learning how to talk about it and what to do with these results, people accepting that this is the new reality, and then people being able to afford it. I think what's happened is that these things have like slowly, everything is way too slow, in my opinion. That's what I want to do at Next Health. Next Health is a platform for people to come in and understand like these things are available and you can do them.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to continue to do this with all these new innovations that are out there.
It would be really cool if you would just take all of this information that you're sharing today, and I know there's so much more, but just example of that test, and then have some kind of a white paper that you can use, that's right from Next Health, but you can use it for people that are business people particularly who always want to see the proof, right? And they want the science and all. But if there were a way that you could put it all in one concise document for people to examine and understand and know what it could do for them, because everybody's looking out for their own self-interest, but they all have family members, many are caregivers, and so helping other people is also a big part of this. But would that be something that could be done, that you would feel comfortable having
Oh,
a
yes. In fact, Michelle, I'm working on a book right now to just be a simple, easy guide to everything we talked about today with all the proof points, the articles, the et cetera, that people can do a little bit of a deeper dive on their own if they like. But here's what I would do if you were my family member. These are the simple things that you need to put into place into your life and keep track of to really make sure that you stay alive as long as we improve your lifespan and your health span. You stay as healthy as for as long as possible, and you live as long as you possibly can. And so I'm writing a book right now, and so that should be done by the end of the year, hopefully out beginning of next year. And I'd love to share that with your audience when it's done.
or what's the name of the book?
We're still working on that.
Okay, you'll let me
Yeah,
know. I'll be following you anyway. So
absolutely.
I think I sent you a LinkedIn invitation, so we'll be together. We'll know all these things, so I can share them with my audience. So before we go, because I know we're running out of time, I see the little note to me to wrap it up. So I knew that would happen. But there's two things I want to cover before we go. The first thing is just personally, is there someone that has inspired you in your journey, someone that you would call your mentor or the person that you turn to for advice in your world?
Yeah, I've had many mentors throughout my life, to be honest with you. And one of the mentors is not really just one mentor; it's a group of 8 people that I meet with on a monthly basis, and we discuss our personal life, we discuss our business life, and we discuss how we're doing with our family as well. And these 8 people we've been meeting for over 15 years now, and we just make sure we meet every month. And it's a group of men and women,
Mm-hmm.
and we really try to surround ourselves with the 8 people that can make the most positive influences in our life. And so I bring the health aspect, other people bring the business aspect, the family aspect, and it's this group of people that really push me to do better, but also to make sure that I'm accountable to these changes that I want to make, or and accountable to really living at my highest level.
Mm-hmm.
And I really appreciate them, and they've been a fantastic influence in my
And
life.
I see that you're a member of YPO. So are those the roots of those people in that group from your YPO, your Young Presidents Organization, from your
Correct.
experience? Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
this is
I
my
wish.
YPO forum.
Yeah, I will. I love it. I love
So
it.
anyone who's listening to this podcast, just say you heard this on Michelle's podcast, and we will offer you one free visit to Next Health where you can utilize any of our technology that's available at that moment, either cryo, sauna, hyperbaric, whatever speaks to you. Come walk in, and I just want you to see the space, understand what we're doing, and benefit from the technology.
I just can't thank you enough for that. If people who are listening don't take you up on that offer, that is like one of the best offers we've ever had. And anyone that's living in the geographic area, of course, can make the appointment and just use the ageless code. Just say Michelle Hughes or ageless, and that referral will be right to Darshan, to your staff. So definitely that is just an amazing offer. So Darshan, thank you so much for taking your time today to share with us what your passions are and why you're doing these things and what's available for people. There's just so much meat on the bone here, and I hope people will send me emails and ask me more questions that I can pass on to you if they have, if they have them, or just go and have that one day of a visit if they're in the geographic area. So just so you know, again, New York City, and this is all going to be on your website. So we'll include your website in our tape and on our YouTube channel. And our website, so people will have no excuses not to know who you are, what you're doing, and where you are. So New York City, and of course those 4 locations in Los Angeles, and soon to be Dubai, but I'm not sure many people will take advantage of that are listening today, but maybe. And then what was the other one? Did I miss?
We actually have a location of the Four Seasons in Maui.
Oh, that's the one. Yes. How
Mhm.
could I forget that? I saw you on Ben Greenfield talking. You was he was at that that location. So
Yes.
yeah, Maui needs the business. Four Seasons is open for everybody. So that's another one to take advantage of. Okay, Darshan, well, I'm going to say goodbye to you and wish you so much luck. And I'm really hoping that in another month or two, I'll be able to meet you in person, and then we'll have a day together in Los Angeles. So thank
That
you
would be
again.
great.
All right. Good luck. And
Thank you so much.
okay, take care. Bye bye.